a conversation with Ben is Ben talking and you kind of just getting a few words in there. He'd be the first to say that he doesn't have friends. I think he does. Knowles, because he's an actor, he puts on a show a little bit. There's Catholics, and then there's Walsh and Knowles.
Austin Stevens, thank you very much for coming on to the show today. I appreciate your time very much.
Well, thanks for inviting me on. It's good to be here.
My pleasure. So before we just dive right into it, can you give us a brief bio of who it is you are and what exactly you do?
So, as you said, I'm Austin Stevens. I am the technical director at the Daily Wire. Our umbrella company is Bent Key Ventures, but everybody would know us as the Daily Wire. So I do basically what you're doing there, where you're switching the cameras and stuff.
I'll switch to that wide camera. I'm hitting these buttons over here.
Yeah, so that's what I do on a much larger scale for the shows like Ben Shapiro Show, Michael Knowles Show, Andrew Klavan Show, Matt Walsh Show. Very original names. Yeah, so I have a big old board in front of me, and I push all the buttons, switch the cameras, run the graphics. I mean, I've been there for like almost 6 years now. So
wow.
I was there at the very beginning. And so I've kind of had my hand in a lot of stuff there. But that's my official job title.
Okay, so I mean, the Daily Wire, we're talking massive media companies here because they're like the number one most engaged with media company on Facebook. The Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, Andrew Klavan. I mean, you're naming names that everyone knows. These are household names, especially in the rural, central Illinois area. You've been with them for 6 years, you said.
Yeah.
The company's not much older than that. How did you get wrapped up in this company in the first place?
Yeah, so 6 years. The company itself is about 6.5 years old. So getting off of that, I guess, if we just want to talk about my journey of getting there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I originally, when I started going to college at Illinois State, I was studying to be a physics teacher because I love doing film. I did a bunch of stuff with all my, best friends in high school. We'd always do like short films and stuff with my dad's video camera. But being from a town of 4,000, I never thought that I would be able to make it in film, and just doing Hollywood stuff. So I was like, well, I'll just stay at home. I'll be a physics teacher, And then whenever I got to Illinois State, I realized I was really bad at the other science classes. So like I failed chemistry twice. I failed biology and realized I probably wasn't going to make it in science. And so I kind of had a bit of an existential crisis and was like, well, what do I do now? Finally decided, you know what, I'm just going to try and do film. So I went to Heartland for a year and got my associates and then transferred to Greenville College down in Southern Illinois. They have a really good film program down there. So I did that. And then they have what's basically like a study abroad program in Los Angeles, which if you've been to Los Angeles, it is basically another country. So that's like the study abroad thing called the Los Angeles Film Studies Center. And it's a semester-long course in Hollywood that you make short films. You do an internship with a studio. So I interned at Disruption Entertainment, which is now part of Legendary Entertainment, which if you know, like they did Godzilla, they did Pacific Rim.
Pacific Rim was one of the best like CGI movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, so I think they were working on the sequel when I was there, but all you do as an intern is read scripts and decide whether they're good or bad. So if you've ever sent a script into a studio, an intern has read it and decided your fate. So just know that. But that was my internship, and so I made some short student films, directed a few things, and that's what I wanted to do is write and direct. And through that program, a couple of the alumni that did that program were working at the Daily Wire. So it was Jonathan Hay and Mathis Glover had done the program before me. So through that program, I got hooked up with them, got an interview, got the job actually as an editor. But at the time, I was not political at all. I didn't know what a Republican or a Democrat was. I think Obama was president. I didn't know what his political party was. And I still tried not to be too political myself, but I was way worse back then. So I had no idea what the Daily Wire was, who Ben Shapiro was. And even at the time, like, he wasn't big yet. Like, this was, the Daily Wire had been around for 6 months, I guess. And I think Ben had done the Piers Morgan thing where he slapped him with the Constitution, over gun rights or whatever.
Right. He was talking about the Columbine kids or something.
Yeah,
like
exactly. That's kind of how
Sandy
Ben,
Hook, I think. I forget which one
it was. Sandy Hook, yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of how Ben got big, was through that, but he was still small. So it was Ben Shapiro and it was Andrew Klavan, and then I was hired on as basically an editor was my official title, but there were 3 of us in production. It was me and Jonathan and Mathis, and we did everything on the shows. So I was pulling clips at the beginning, switching the show, and then editing it and uploading it at the end.
That's an incredibly important job.
Yeah.
If you didn't do a good job, that whole ship could have sank.
It would have gone, we would have gone down if we didn't have a great, the 3 of us were a really great team. Mm-hmm. So I worked on Andrew Klavan, Mathis did Ben Shapiro, and then Jonathan was kind of like the head of production. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of how I got my hands on everything, was that there weren't enough of us to be specialized. So it was everybody was doing everything. And just me, I kind of have this knack that I just can easily pick stuff up. So when we started going live streaming, because before it was just recorded, we uploaded it. And then we started going live, so I figured that out. And it was, it was just like 3 cameras in a studio, and between shows we would actually just turn the cameras to the other set. So I was doing that, all the PA work. But then just as we slowly grew and grew, it was always me and a couple of us just figuring out, okay, what's the next step that we can do
to improve production and everything?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I want to ask you a little bit, before we talk about, the evolution of the Daily Wire and what some of the first big steps were, some of the first big breaks, I want to ask about, what was it like growing up for you? Because you said you went into physics and it wasn't for you. You were probably interested in it. You must have been if you were planning on going into that as a major. Yeah. But I watched some of your high school videos in preparation for this.
God.
No, and it's so interesting because, Austin, I think that you and I are more alike than I originally thought. Because I used to love video editing. I would make videos with my friends all the time.
Yeah.
The effects on my end were terrible. I'd use Sony Vegas. I would illegally download Adobe After Effects and try to work with that stuff and try to make some funny content, action content, stuff like that. I was just a nerd for it. Would you say that you were a nerd for video production when you were in junior high school, that age group?
I'd say I was a nerd in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Because... on top of the film stuff, it was usually superhero stuff that we were doing. But yeah, I found my dad's video camera, I think freshman year of high school, and realized that we could record stuff on that and then put it in Windows Movie Maker on our computer. And that was one, I think it was 1 level of video and 1 level of audio. Maybe 2 levels, but it was you'd have to edit and export one file,
I understand,
and then
put
that file back into Windows Movie Maker to add a gunshot under music, So I was trying to do that, freshman year of high school, on through there, and we're trying to do superhero movies because what else are you gonna do? You do funny stuff. We did Jackass stuff, where we would hit each other with baseballs and stuff. Yeah, anything scripted, we were trying to do superhero stuff. And eventually, once I got into college, then I got my hands on After Effects and Premiere Pro and all of that stuff, and it got a little bit better. But there's a lot of stuff unfinished, but the stuff that went up, it's pretty fun.
Valentine's Day is coming up, and you do not want to be the person who doesn't get your special someone a beautiful bouquet of flowers. The gift of flowers has long been a way of expressing your love and admiration for your significant other on this centuries-old holiday. But if you attempt to go out and find your own flowers, arrange them nicely, and get them to your person on time, you can go wrong in so many different ways. Lucky for you, Nature's Designs by Tiff in Fairbury is taking all the stress out of the holiday this year so that you can fully enjoy it with the person you love. Just call them up at 815-692-3024 and tell them that you'd like some flowers to be delivered to your loved one's address on Valentine's Day. You can even ask that they deliver in the morning or in the afternoon, and they can even include chocolates, stuffed animals, candles, bath products, plants, and other cute gift items as well to really put a smile on your loved one's face. So don't delay. Call up Nature's Designs by Tiff at 815-692-3024 and schedule your incredible Valentine's Day delivery package and make this Valentine's Day the best one yet.
I have this really bad tendency to start things and not finish them. So we did a whole like hour and a half superhero movie that's just in editing hell. I think we shot the whole thing, and then I just got to a point where I'm like, this is a lot of special effects and I have other things to do. So I never finished it, but just the doing it with your friends, with your best friends, was super fun. And yeah, I mean, just the creative process, the just kind of just hanging out, spitballing, filming it. I think a lot of it stems from I was an only child, and so a lot of times it would just be me by myself in the basement with my Legos and my Connects and action figures, just kind of writing stories myself. And then that kind of just, snowballed into, well, like creative writing classes of writing things, building these stories. And so I have all of these, these ideas in my head that I just want to be able to tell. And I think film, I could never really draw that well. So comics wasn't a great outlet just because it was like, oh, here's a stick figure punching another stick figure. Well, that's not very entertaining. But, film and, kind of animation, you can tell whatever story you want. And I really enjoy doing that. And to do it with friends and hang out and be able to craft this thing out of nothing, I find a lot of joy in.
Yeah, man, that is freaking awesome. And you probably just all had to be elated when the video was finally finished and you got to watch it together. Yeah. Probably thinking it was so cool, only 10 years later to watch back and just shake your head at the whole thing.
As soon as when you said, "Oh, I watched your videos," I'm like, please don't, dude. Like maybe like 4 of them are okay, but they're rough.
Tell me about the beginning of the Daily Wire when you first got involved.
Sure.
It's a gigantic multi-million-dollar company now with tons. It's got a huge website. They're on every social media platform. Their marketing's incredible. Their content's incredible, which is actually largely thanks to you.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
And
I'll take all the credit.
Yeah. Well, where do I even begin? Okay, first of all.
Yeah.
The beginning. What did that business look like compared to what it is now?
Jeremy Boring, who's the co-CEO of it, one of the founders with Ben Shapiro, it was the first couple months literally in his pool house. It was a camera just like this one, shooting just like this on a backdrop just like this.
Oh man, pumping me up.
In Jeremy's pool house. It was probably actually this size, that they would just hit record on the camera. Ben would look at the camera and he would talk for 30 or 45 minutes. And then he would step out, Klavan would step in, and then Klavan would talk for 30 or 45 minutes. And then they would cut the clips in post-production, for those that don't know. Cut the clips in after the show and then upload it. And that was what they did for the first couple months. Just hit record on a camera, hit record on a microphone recorder. It was probably just a Zoom recorder, I think, even, and then upload it. So that was the first couple months, and then they got enough money from investors and other things. There's like a couple big conservative bigwigs, oil tycoons, that invested some money in them, that they were able to get a small just office space at a building in Los Angeles, in Sherman Oaks. So it was about 6 rooms and a hallway, I think. And the kind of a bigger room. It was probably like a 50 by 30 foot room where the studios were. And that's when I started. So it was the whole company itself in office was about 10 people. And it was Jeremy, the CEO, was in there. Ben was in there. We had a makeup girl, a front desk, an animator, illustrator, the 3 of us in production, and that was probably it.
Wow.
And then the website itself, there's a lot of articles on it because the production side of it is only really half of the company.
Right.
A lot of it is the writers and the articles and the stuff on the website. But they're scattered throughout the country. Like, you don't have to be in office to be a writer. A couple of them were, but most of them were just scattershot across the country. So the early days, it was, like I said, it was in that like 50 by 30 studio. We had 3 cameras. We had a production switcher, which is, you press buttons to switch cameras, press a couple other buttons to run graphics. We had clips playback actually live, so we didn't have to edit it in after anymore.
That's convenient.
Yeah, so that was really nice. So the host would send us the clips before and say, hey, this is, some clips I want to talk about, like, here's Chris Cuomo saying this thing. Hey, here's some, just B-roll footage of a riot somewhere.
Is that why Ben Shapiro sometimes says, okay, and this is what so-and-so said, and I believe that's clip 2. It's to tell the person.
Yes.
Okay.
That's to tell the person, playing the clip. Because we have a whole, clip list, and sometimes it's just, it's not a very descriptive clip name sometimes, because he's just like, hey, pull this thing, and then, yeah, so he'll say, hey, play clip 2. Drew does it a lot because he's got like 50 clips per show.
Andrew Klavan?
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Oh, no,
Klavan.
I like it.
He usually sends us like 50 clips for his show because it's only once a week now, and he jumps around a lot, so he'll always throw out the clip name. But yeah, so going back, we have the live clips now that we can actually play it. So we have one person switching the show, one person doing clips playback whenever the host calls for it. We got graphics and some actual, like an audio mixer, like an actual board. It's not just a Zoom anymore. And that all would feed into a computer where we just hit record and it records everything. And then we just do some quick edits at the end and then upload it. Because mainly we're trying to do it live to tape, where everything that happens during the recording is what we then upload. Because it makes the after process way faster. So that way, so that way we can record it, and then within 20 minutes it's already up. Because as you probably know, like, speed is everything with this.
Speed is everything, man.
And if we're doing a show daily, we were Monday through Thursday, and it's with news, something could happen, and 30 minutes later something new happens, and if you're not on top of that, then you're outdated.
Right. It could be a matter of literal internet speed, editing speed.
Yes.
And if you want to get your clip up in a relevant time frame before, CNN, before someone else.
Before you're no longer relevant, and then you got to just wait for the next day.
Right. Yeah. You want to be the first person on the news, and you want to be the first person on the news with high quality, with good sound. You just want to beat everyone to the punch, and, have it be better looking than everyone else's. Like, man. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you were at the Daily Wire when it was just 10 people. How many people do you think are in that company now?
Now probably 150 to 200, depending on if you count the writers and everything. But it's huge. We're in a big building in Nashville now, which we moved about a year ago. We have a big complex in Nashville with some brand new nice studios, and everybody, just all the offices of everybody, in one big space. And it's huge.
Fairbury Furniture is Central Illinois' champion furniture store. This family-owned business offers a vast selection of premium furniture items from all of your favorite brands, including Sealy, Best Home Furnishings, Leather Italia, Tempur-Pedic, and Ashley, just to name a few. And right next door to their gorgeous 7,000 square foot furniture showroom, you will find the Fairbury Furniture Mattress Store, home to all of the latest and greatest mattresses in any and all sizes. Here at Fairbury Furniture, the staff is helpful and friendly, and they are well stocked with all the mattresses, tables, chairs, recliners, couches, rugs, and decorative pillows that your heart desires. Make your home interior beautiful, comfortable, stylish, and delightful when you shop at Fairbury's own Fairbury Furniture.
In the community is probably more accepting of the Daily Wire in general, being that Tennessee is a more conservative Republican state, much more so than California.
Well, yeah, so that's the thing. Like, it used to be that I never said where I worked, and I'm still even a little hesitant about it. I've almost gotten to the point now where I just don't care, and I'm doing this, so I can't care that much. But I've gotten to a point with myself of accepting that, it's a job, and it's a good paying job, and I'm doing what I like doing of creating video content, and we're trying to do some other things too. But yeah, Nashville's a lot more accepting. In Los Angeles, I was still trying to, get into the movie scene. And so anybody you meet could be somebody. Hollywood is all about networking. It's about who you know.
Oh yeah. That's what I've heard.
Yeah. And obviously you can break in and be, young rising talent and whatever, but 90% of Hollywood is who you know. So it was always, whenever you meet new people, it's like, oh, hey, what do you do for work? Oh, I work at Bentkey Ventures. Oh, what is that? We do podcasts. Oh, what kind of podcasts? And then usually I say we did Another Kingdom, which was Andrew Klavan's book, and we turned it into a podcast. So usually I would say that because it's the least political thing that we did that I worked on. So I would say that because, it's just if you say Ben Shapiro, they're like, oh, well, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Right.
Because there's maybe 100 people in LA that are conservative Republicans, and about half of them worked at the Daily Wire.
Is it true? Were people actually kind of harsh like that? Against the right side of the aisle? Did you ever have someone say something along the lines of what you just said?
I personally never experienced it, just because I tried to tread very lightly. Mm-hmm. But I know other people that worked there, other friends that were more outspoken, that had been, for lack of a better word, discriminated against because of their political views. Mm-hmm. And I myself, I try to tread down the middle, and I don't know. I just don't care that much about politics. Stuff matters to me, but I know myself, I'm not informed enough to have a large political debate with somebody. So I just don't talk about it that much.
Right. So when it comes to what occupies your mind, it's not the majority is not filled by political thoughts or anything.
No, what occupies my mind is what this character should do at this moment in this story that I'm writing in my head at the time. It's 90% of my thoughts are about fictional stories that I'm trying to write. But at work, obviously that does fill your conscience, because I'm running shows for 3 to 4 hours.
Right.
So that does, but...
And I do want to ask about your writing, because I know you're passionate about writing stories like you were just saying. But before we get to that point, as I said, you were one of the original 10 people with the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
What were your feelings about the course that company would take? Did you feel like it had a bright future? Did you feel like you were a part of something that would ultimately be one of the biggest media agencies in America? Definitely the biggest conservative media agency. Yeah. Well, I guess unless you want to consider Fox in that mix. But what were your feelings like in the beginning about the future of that company?
I think I didn't know enough politically to have a strong concept of where it would go. I know as the longer I worked there and the more I kind of understood the political landscape, I could kind of see that we were making waves. And we always had, monthly meetings, and every time we had a monthly meeting, it was, we doubled our whatever from last month. We doubled our views from last month. We doubled our profits from last month. And it was month over month doubling, for a long time. So you could kind of tell, but it's really hard when you're in the midst of something. It's really hard to get a sense of what the rest of the world thinks about it. So whenever I walked in, you're like, oh, I'm a huge Daily Wire fan, just kind of fangirling about it. Mm-hmm. And it's, one, because we were in LA for so long and you just never hear that. But also being in it, you just don't know how other people think about it. If you're working on something that you're super passionate about, you think it's the best thing in the world. And then you tell your friend about it and he's just like, yeah, it's okay.
Right.
And, you think that it's awesome. And so it's kind of have that feeling while I was working there. Was it definitely felt like we were doing something, but outside of just the numbers that you see online, which might be true. You know, you don't know how much of that is organic traction or, you know, paid ads or whatever. Outside of that, you just don't really know how other people see it. But you could kind of tell, you know, like a lot of friends from home, that I had talked to about it, you know, they were really excited for it. And just as we grew, I saw more and more of my Facebook friends online posting stuff organically about it. And that's kind of whenever I realized, oh, like we are growing, like we are making a difference. It is big. Like Ben Shapiro is a big name now.
Very interesting. That's so cool that you saw it wasn't organic. I don't know how did they even grow so quickly? You said they had some big oil tycoon type of people investing in them. I don't know if they were actually oil tycoons, but some rich guys were investing in them.
I think it's fracking actually, but yeah.
Okay.
You get the idea.
Yes. So how did they grow so much? It must have been their content was great. They had great editing. They had great video. The things they were talking about were of importance to people, and they must have marketed the heck out of this thing on like Facebook or something, right?
Yeah.
Do you know that information? Like, how did they market?
I'm not really tapped in with the social media marketing side of it. I mean, I kind of know a little bit, but I think a lot of it is just the content. I think that Ben and Klavan and then Knowles, whenever he came in, we can talk about Knowles in a bit because that's that's a whole fun story.
Sure.
But I think just the things that they were saying were not mainstream things. And I think things that a lot of people thought that they weren't being heard. And I think that's kind of how it gained traction and gained an audience. And the marketing, I think it was like, they did talk about it a bit. I think the strategy was post a lot of stuff all the time. I think that literally was the strategy. They wrote a ton of articles. Obviously, we're doing 3 to 4 podcasts a day. So just volume and getting it out there, posting it, putting money behind it in ad sales and all of that. Oh, excuse me. I think that's how it grew. I think it was just a lot of organic stuff of this is what people wanted to see and wanted to hear.
Right. Yeah. Just casting 1,000 lines out, knowing that statistically people are going to bite.
Something's gonna hook.
Oh man. Cool. Gosh. Sometimes I wonder how much money they got, to sponsor that stuff, to boost that stuff on Facebook. But that's a question. I mean, if you knew, you probably couldn't tell me that stuff. But okay, I want to talk about some of the stars on the show because I've had people asking me to ask you about this.
Okay, yeah.
So you've worked, you've probably talked person to person to Shapiro, to Knowles, to Klavan, to Matt Walsh, and others. And also, your name's listed at the end of the show of the Ben Shapiro Sunday Special. And that show has brought on so many incredible people like Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, Andrew Yang. I could name more people than just that. Just tons of amazing, world-renowned people.
Yeah.
I'll just start with this question. Who's been your favorite person to work with? Like, who's the most personable star at the Daily Wire studios for you, in your opinion?
Okay, so I obviously can't pick favorites.
Right.
I love everybody equally.
Yeah. Just kidding.
I've worked the most closely with Knowles for the longest. So this is the thing with Knowles. Here's his journey.
Let's hear it.
Little peek behind the curtain. Of those first 10 people, Knowles was one of them, and he was the social media person. So it was a room, and it was me, and it was Knowles. And he was Klavan's social media presence. And that was his job, because he was really good friends with Andrew Klavan's son, Spencer Klavan, no relation. And that's how he got hooked up with Drew, because, Drew's a writer, big, Hollywood guy. So he had a ton of books, and Knowles helped him market that on social media. And so Knowles came on to the Daily Wire as the Daily Wire social guy. So this big name podcast host, Michael Knowles, started at the Daily Wire as the social media poster.
Wow.
So that's how he started. And then he, quote unquote, wrote a blank book of reasons to vote for Democrats, a comprehensive
so close
guide.
to getting that as a gift for someone this Christmas.
It blew up. It's literally just a blank book called Reasons to Vote for Democrats. And I don't know the exact number of how many copies he sold, but I think it's 6 digits.
No way.
Of the number of copies he sold on
Hold
Amazon.
up. That's kind of, oh my gosh. That's almost infuriating to make so much money off of a book that is just white paper.
So Shapiro is a real author. Like, he's written real books. Mm-hmm. And so when Knowles comes in here and writes a blank book and just shatters Ben's records, so you've got the right side of history. I think that and Reasons to Vote for Democrats came out around the same time. And Knowles just blew him out of the water. And so that's part of the reason why Shapiro hates him so much. You know, they have this like on-camera, off-camera feud.
Right.
That
he hates Michael Knowles so much.
Yeah, Ben kind of hates Knowles. Knowles is just the punching bag of the Daily Wire. And it kind of stems from that. And then, you know, Ben lost a bet to him about the 2016 election. So that just kind of fuels it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he actually hates him. He might.
That's hilarious.
I don't think he actually does. But that's that Knowles writing a blank book, literally doing nothing. He did it in a day. Like, I think he had the idea, and a week later the book was published on Amazon, because you can self-publish on Amazon. And I think it was like November that he did it, so it was like right at Christmas time. It was just the perfect storm of everything aligning for this book to succeed, because it was either right before or right after the election. So that blew up. And all of a sudden, Knowles, he is a name now because he wrote this book. And so they decided, well, we'll give Knowles a show.
So he got a show from writing the book with no words in it?
Yes.
Wow.
So if you want your own show out there, anybody, just write a blank book and you'll get a show. No, but he was also an actor, so it's not like he came from nothing. You know, he had on-camera experience. And he'd ran a couple campaigns when he was in college. Like, he ran a couple local campaigns, and I think like some House of Representative campaigns or something that he'd ran successfully. So it's not like he came from nothing. Like, he had political experience whenever he got the show. He started in an actual broom closet in our studio because we had nowhere else to put him. So we put him in a broom closet and set up a camera, and so that's how he got a show.
That is an incredible backstory that I've never heard before.
So that's Knowles' backstory. There you go. Little insight on that. So he is, going back to the original question like 20 minutes ago of who's my favorite. He's had the most, I think, personal relationship I've had with him. Just because we worked together in the same room for a long time, and I've worked on his show since the actual episode 1. I've worked on his show. But I think of just in general, Klavan is the most personable host that we have. He's an actual, just genuine, down to earth dude that you can just sit and have a conversation with. He's mid-60s, well traveled. You know, he lived in Europe for a couple of years. He's written a ton of books, lived in Hollywood. He was as he would say, he was a secular Jew who turned to Christianity. So he's just got a huge heart for people. And he is, just a super nice guy. He's helped me on my own, personal work before. I've sent him scripts and stuff and said, hey, you don't have to, but if you could give me a few tips on this, and he's taken the time to read it and, given me advice on stuff. But he's great. He's awesome. Ben is exactly who he is on camera. Talks really fast. A conversation with Ben is Ben talking and you kind of just getting a few words in there to, make it feel like you're engaged with him. But he's super nice. He'd be the first to say that he doesn't have friends. I think he does. Like him and Jeremy are friends. You know, he has a few other friends, but like he always says like his friends is his family, and
Right.
he's very family oriented. And so at work he's business, but he's fun. He is funny in his own weird way. But around his kids, I've only seen it a few times at like, you know, work parties or whatever, whenever his wife and kids will come. He's a different person with them. Like he's goofy dad, Ben. And so I think he's only got so much energy that he can dedicate to stuff. So I think he reserves all of his weird, like fun Ben for his family. And then on camera and even, you know, behind the camera is just all business. But it's still, you know, he's still fun. Walsh is Walsh. He is, if you watch his show, he's just very straightforward, very dry. That is him. I think I would say that most of the guys are their on-camera
They're
persona.
authentic?
I think they're all pretty authentic. Knowles, because he's an actor, he puts on a show a little bit.
Yeah.
So he is a little bit more, I don't know, puffed up on camera just because he's an actor, but he's basically the same person off camera. But yeah, Walsh is Walsh. That's, I don't know. If you've watched his show, that is who he is. He's kind of antisocial, an introvert. He doesn't like other people in the room with him when he does his show. So like even when he goes on the road and his producer goes with him, usually the producer will sit in the room with them at the hotel room whenever they do their remote shows. Like if they're out doing speeches or something, we record their show in a hotel room. And usually the producer will sit in the room with the host when they do it. Walsh doesn't like it. So his producer just has to set it up, connect with us, and then leave and go sit in the bedroom until the show's over. Because I don't know, like, I think he's just embarrassed about it. But it's also like, it's a weird thing. Like you can sit and talk to a camera and then say, oh yeah, that was good, and then upload it. But if you have somebody sitting there watching you that you can kind of gauge
Oh, they're giving
off of them,
so much information. It's not
Yeah.
even funny. Yeah.
it's a whole different thing. So he wants to be left alone and do his show. And then, you know, we have lunch. He just grabs his lunch, goes to his studio. But now, not to say that he's mean or a jerk or anything, because he's a sweet guy.
Yeah.
And he would kill me if he heard me say that. But
That he's a sweet guy.
yeah, but if
that's funny.
if you get him talking about something, you know, like he likes fishing, he likes football, you know, kind of like all the stereotypical manly stuff. If you get him talking about that, he'll have a genuine conversation with you. And I have a couple times, but we have this running tally at work of who can get him to laugh. So we'll try every day of trying to get him to laugh, and we'll keep a score of who's gotten the most. And I think I'm like in third or something. I don't know. His producer knows him really well, so he can get him to laugh about every day. But
Well, how have you made him laugh? You remember?
I can't remember. Just like stupid jokes, or he does like kind of stupid. He does like stupid jokes. So, or just weird stuff. So like we have this little astronaut on his desk that we move around every day. And one day I brought in a Lego spaceship and put the astronaut in the spaceship. So he laughed at that. We've built we've started now completely decking out his studio for holidays, because we did it for Halloween, that we threw a bunch of like spider webs and like spooky lights and all this stuff all over his studio. And he walked in and laughed at that. And it was just supposed to be a one-off video that we did where he played like Five Nights at Freddy's or something for a YouTube video. And he loved it, so we just left it. And then we decorated it for Thanksgiving and then decorated it for Christmas. And he gets a kick out of that.
Man, interesting. Like you said, he's a sweet guy. I've seen him on a podcast that I listen to occasionally called Pints with Aquinas, because he's a devout Catholic. Him and
Knowles. Yeah, there's Catholics, and then there's Walsh and Knowles, who are Catholic. Like
very
Catholic.
interesting.
Yeah.
No, yeah, and I love that. And I'm a devout Catholic, by the way, too. I don't know if I'm on the same level as them. Probably not, but I mean, I got this crucifix in the back every episode, and hopefully going to be talking to an exorcist here soon.
Ooh,
yeah,
that'll be fun.
But no, yeah, he's a great guy, and he's funny. We forgot to mention that Matt Walsh is funny.
Yeah, he's got a very dry. He has a very dry wit, a very dry sense of humor, and a lot of times he will take it too far. Mm-hmm. But
I've heard some of his stuff on the show. I'm like, dang, man, I would not have the guts to say something like that. He goes, he like, there's honest opinions, that you could have that could offend people. And then there's like just throwing fuel on that fire.
He does it on purpose.
Yeah.
I know that he does. And it just, oh man, we were just in the control room, just cringing every time we start a show. We're like, what's he going to do to get us in trouble today? And I gotta tell you, it's not fun.
Well, okay. So these videos that they create for their podcasts, they look exquisite. I mean, it's good stuff.
Thank you.
What part of it? Yeah. What part of it are you able to take credit for? Now, because I know at the beginning you kind of brought up, if when Ben said his ad for what's that watch company?
Ben Shapiro or Movement.
Yes, Movement, yeah. So you make the little thingy come up, like it'd be right here, Movement.
Yeah, so someone else actually makes the graphics, but live during the show, there's a little button that I can press that I've programmed it that when he says it, it takes the bug out, which is his name in the corner, it takes that out, and then it pops up the graphic of the ad, and then I press it again, and it takes the graphic out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You ever forget
really
to hit
exciting. A couple times.
No way, really?
I mean,
you ever hit the wrong clip or something? You probably bring up the clips too and everything?
No, it happens. Like watch, and this is the thing. This makes me feel a little better. I will admit I've made a lot of mistakes. We have all made a lot of mistakes on the shows. Things have gone wrong, especially the big shows. Like we did an election show for 2020.
The backstage?
Yeah, there was the backstage election show, and it was like 6 hours. We had a ton of graphics coming in. A lot of stuff went wrong. Honestly, I don't know if people noticed it because a lot of stuff, it's like just something didn't fire. So it's like you press the button and the graphic doesn't come up. Mm-hmm. And if you're just watching it as a viewer, you don't know that something was supposed to come up. But in the control room, we're just screaming our heads off like, why isn't this thing working? What's going on? And it's like, everybody yelling and stuff. But the thing that makes me feel better is if you go and you watch like a 7 a.m., like Fox or NBC, like big professional show, they make mistakes all the time. Mm-hmm. Like that's just live television is just the tech not working. So I don't feel as bad whenever I make a mistake, but I barely make mistakes.
I've always been curious. What is the main income stream for the Daily Wire? Because I know you do have a lot of subscribers for like $99 a year or something like that.
Yeah. So they've set it up that it's kind of like a pie chart of all these different revenues that come in. So there's like ad sales on the articles on the website. There's YouTube ads, Facebook ads, like email. There's like an email list, that ads will be in that. And then there's subscriptions to the website. And they've always put at the front of their minds subscribing to the website because with all of the, the talk of like deplatforming and, banned from YouTube, banned from Facebook, all of that, if you say the wrong thing, nobody, unless someone in charge of the internet takes the Daily Wire off the internet, nobody's going to take away the subscribers. Mm-hmm. So you could lose your Facebook ads, you could lose your YouTube ads, you could get taken off of literally everything. But if the Daily Wire and the subscribers are still there paying for the content, you're going to be turning a profit.
Right.
So while they do push a lot of the other things while we have it, at the front of their minds has always been what's going to get people to subscribe to the website. And that was part of the announcement that they made a year ago on the backstage election show was they announced we're getting into entertainment and I think they're trying to do sports too, but just branching out for what the website is going to be, that it's no longer just politics, that it's now a cultural thing.
Yes, it's a true multimedia company.
Yeah, so that's what we're trying. I mean, that's what they're trying to do now is drive people to the website. So we have the normal shows, they're on YouTube, they're on Apple Podcasts. But now we have like Sunday Special is behind the paywall. Ben has a new show where it's a little bit like the Sunday Special, but it's much more laid back. So he just did his first episode with Jordan Peterson.
I watched it. Yep.
Yeah, and
I think I'm more of a fan than I realized. I know everything that you're talking about.
Yeah, he's well, great. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, so I think that's called The Search. Is his new show, and it's just him with his friends this one was in a coffee shop. I'm sure they'll be in other places, but it's much more laid back. Where Sunday Special was like a very straightforward interview. Here's questions, answer them.
Very formal.
Yeah, very formal. This one was much more laid back. Just they sit down at a table, you turn the cameras on, and they talk. So like that's exclusive to the website.
Were you filming that? Were you in that coffee shop?
That one I wasn't involved with.
Okay.
No, because I do all the daily shows. So I'm booked up of a day from 6:30 a.m. to about noon. And then in the afternoon, if they're doing Skype hits on other shows or additional content in their studio, that's all me. So if we do off-campus stuff, I'm not always able to be involved with it.
So you're stuck in the building for the most part.
For the most part, yeah. I'll get out and do stuff. Like I direct the backstage shows that we do once a month, where it's the round table with everybody. I direct those, and those are later in the day. That's it. And I personally am trying to get into other avenues within the company on the entertainment side.
Let's talk about that, because I know you're a passionate writer. I've heard rumblings of you maybe getting into some of the writing stuff at the Daily Wire. Is that true? And can you tell me more about it?
Yeah. So I'll try to tread lightly here, because there's probably some stuff that I can't say.
Yeah.
But yeah, a year ago we made the announcement that we were going to move to Nashville and we were going to get into entertainment. And it was pretty shocking. It was just on a team meeting in August, everybody on Zoom, and Jeremy announced it. And one of my office mate, before we even started the meeting, he said, I think they're going to announce that we're moving. I was like, no, we're not. He's like, no, I've heard rumblings it's going to happen. I'm like, we're not moving. And then they announced it, and he kind of looked at me like like that, because I don't know how he knew, but he just knew. He had this gut feeling. And it was a very tough decision for me and my wife to move, because we had a really great place in Burbank, and we had just thought that we were going to be there. Like, I wanted to do film. That's where film is. Mm-hmm. But the more we thought about it, it really only took a week. It was just kind of this like God moment, stars aligning kind of thing, where we realized, I have a best friend in Nashville. I have a cousin in Nashville. It's much closer to home. Like, we don't have to worry about flying anymore. We can just drive. We could buy a house. We could start a family, and I could get into the entertainment with the Daily Wire. And so we decided to move. And in November of last year, the whole company and us moved to Nashville. Within a few months, we bought a house. Within a few months after that, now my wife is pregnant. We're starting the family. And within a few months of moving to Nashville, I got the opportunity to work on a show with the company, a scripted comedy show. And it kind of happened by accident. That it was like me and one of my other friends that worked there, and another guy that they'd kind of brought in to do scripted content. His name's Mike Akel, and he's done some other stuff, like other shows. He's pitched stuff. He's done a bunch of other stuff that they really liked, so they brought him in. And it was kind of the three of us were just we were trying to come up with what we could pitch to Jeremy to develop into a TV show for the entertainment division, because they were gung-ho, let's do everything mode for the entertainment side. And I think we had just announced that we were going to do the Gina Carano movie. Mm-hmm. So that was in full swing. They were working on buying Run, Hide, Fight. That was in the process. So they bought a movie that was already made. And they had they were trying to get another like very small budget, still a full movie, but like a small budget indie movie where it's like maybe a few rooms is where it takes place, that they were trying to find a script for that. And so we were thinking, okay, we know they want to do a TV show. What can we kind of pitch? We wrote the pilot, and we got it to our boss, who got it to Jeremy, you know, through that pipeline. And he called us in like a week later, and individually, which is how you know it's going to be a bad meeting, because he calls you in individually.
Oh.
And he sat us down. He brought the other guy in first, sat him down. And then he
Is
brought
this
me
Jeremy?
in. This is Jeremy.
Okay.
Yeah, the CEO of the company, which I kind of know him. We'd worked together a while, but at this point now we were well separated, because he's running a company and I'm over here doing my, little peasant stuff in production. But he calls me in, sits me down, and says, "We're going to have a very tough conversation.
Wow.
And then we'll have a good conversation." And he basically talks us through that they had an idea for this show. They were bringing in professional Hollywood writers to write and show run this show. But then they were given a script that's this idea that they had by some of their employees. And he's got this. I'm going to take this.
Yeah,
he's
sure.
got the script. He's got the script in his hand. He said, "I listened to several pitches from professional writers, and that's the best thing I've read about our script." So that was like one of the best moments of my life, because now it's like, okay, we're writing a TV show. So he brings us in. He's showrunner. We're writers on it. And we got the whole season mapped out and written. And now, like 8 months ago, the whole kind of stream of production just kind of shifted. I think they kind of they wanted to get into it quick, and they just kind of realized, well, we can't do everything all at once. So it's been put on hold. But for several months, we were in there actually writing a TV show, which is exactly what I wanted to do and what I had moved to Nashville to do with them. So it's been on hold, but now me and Mike Akel, we're trying to work on kind of some other stuff that has a bit of traction. He just came out with a Man on the Street Christmas video.
I just watched it
Did
literally like an hour ago.
It's great. It's
That's
really
the guy,
fun.
huh? That's Mike?
That's the guy, yeah. So we're working on kind of trying to get, like a Daily Wire comedy group together, kind of sketch comedy thing. And we have a couple more projects that we have gotten greenlit, kind of as a proof of concept, that'll be coming out soon. And hopefully it kind of just develops from there. So that's where I'm kind of at right now.
Well, okay, so just to get back to that story, when Jeremy said, "I'm going to tell you something really difficult,"
Yeah.
did I miss something? What was the difficult part?
So,
Like,
well,
he
we
just
kind of
told you
got
that he liked your idea.
we got in trouble because basically we did it. We got in trouble for doing it, basically, because it was kind of outside of his. It was his thing, but he wasn't involved with it. So it was kind of like a going over his helmet kind of thing.
So he was already in the process of making a comedy type of show, and then you guys on your own said, "We think we have something.
We think
better."
we have it," and then he gets the script. He's like, "This is exactly my idea. How did you guys get a hold of this?" And it was just like him talking with people who like got to us. I don't know. It was a whole thing.
I see. Okay.
It's way too much to get into, but basically, we did his thing without him, and he got mad about it.
But then he was kind of.
But then he was happy about it because we did his thing really well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so that's on hold right now.
Yeah.
You and Mike are kind of doing some stuff. You said, what do you think the future looks like as far as your show that you're writing goes?
I hope it comes back. It still is technically on hold, but we're trying to do some other things with the character. We think that maybe like some small, like 5-minute YouTube skits could maybe get some traction behind it. But in terms of like the entertainment side, they are developing stuff. We have Shut In coming out, which is a new movie. It's they found a great script of it just takes place in a house, and it's kind of like a horror thriller. in a house. So it was super easy to shoot, and that comes out early next year. We just released the trailer for it. The Gina Carano movie they found another really great script. Jeremy did some rewrites on it. And that's I think we just released a small teaser trailer for it. And so that's going to come out late next year. And yeah, they're working on, I'm not too plugged in with it, but they're working on getting some shows and movies that's going to be that exclusive content behind, the Daily Wire paywall that keeps those subscriptions coming.
Wow, man, it just amazes me how this business at only 6.5 years old is just growing and growing. They're entering different industries. It's incredible. This is a full-fledged media company on its way to becoming an empire. And you were one of the first 10 people.
I was one of the first 10, yeah.
Man, and we're getting towards the end of this thing. I could hit you with more questions just because I'm so interested, but I got to remember people are going to listen to this. They don't want to just hear me drag on and
go
talk
ahead.
to you about little things.
Go ahead, keep it coming.
All right. Well, I got to ask about this, and it's a little more controversial, but the Daily Wire recently, made headlines when they filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration for, let's see, what was it? It was when the Biden administration made a presidential order mandating large companies to require employees to be vaccinated or submit to weekly testing.
Yes.
And the Daily Wire quickly, again, they got a high quality video out immediately saying that they're not going to do it, and they're going to file a lawsuit against them in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Right.
What was that like for you as an employee there? Did you appreciate it? What did other employees feel? Like you said, there's hundreds of employees. What was that moment like for you?
Well, so the vaccines themselves are a pretty hot topic, I think, across the country.
Yeah.
But even especially within our company, because Jeremy and Ben are both outspoken pro-vaccine. Knowles is very anti-vaccine, but across the board, they're anti-vaccine mandate. And I mean, you could get into the debate of that and whatever, which I'm not going to do, but
Right.
the company itself is anti-vaccine mandate. And then whoever you talk to, it's pro or whatever vaccine. But I think everyone agrees that it was an overstep, by the administration to get into people's personal health lives.
Hence why it got paused.
Why it was put on pause, why it's gone back and forth. So the general consensus was everyone was pretty happy that they were doing this. I think I am too. I don't think, I am personally pro-vaccine. We got the vaccine. I think it's just, hold on, I'll start over.
You're good.
So yeah, I am personally pro-vaccine, but also anti-vaccine mandate. So for me, I did appreciate that, that they are actually stepping up. And I think they have talked about it recently. I think on one of the recent backstages, that for a long time, they've been commentators on politics and on culture. And they're trying to make a step that they're no longer just commentators, that they are active within the culture. And so one of those things is the filing against the vaccine mandate, and also lumping in they're making entertainment for the culture. Yeah, they've said that people, the fans, whoever, have been outspoken that they want the Daily Wire to be more active rather than just pointing and saying that's bad.
Right. Because they're so big, it's almost like they have an obligation to at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's where it is now. I think that could be where it goes in the future.
Right. They're not just commentators anymore. They're players.
Yes. And I'm like, you even saw it with the Virginia election, with the school boards all the school board stuff happening there. Matt Walsh was very outspoken about that. And some people have said that the Daily Wire, by breaking the story in Loudoun County about the transgender bathroom stuff, that specific moment influenced that Virginia election. And now you have the filing against the vaccine mandate. I think there's one other thing that just happened within the last couple months now, that Jeremy and Ben are realizing that they can no longer just sit by and talk about it, that they have now the power and the influence to actually start to make the changes within the culture, hopefully for the better.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's dramatic. And that's a great place to start wrapping this thing up. I'm going to ask you one more question. I'm going to put it somewhere else in this interview because it wouldn't fit right here. Yeah. I'm going to ask, as far as, you've worked on the Sunday Special and everything, you've seen a lot of guests come in there, maybe even the vast majority of them, maybe even all of them. I'm not sure. Have you been able to talk to people like Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, these people that were actually in the physical studio? Mm-hmm. Have you spoken to them? Do you have a favorite guest that's been on?
So unfortunately, we were not able to talk to the guests, because it was if you let one person talk, then all 50 people need to talk to them, and it just becomes overwhelming.
Right.
It's like they're just a person that wants to come in, do this interview with Ben, and then go about their life. They don't need 50 Daily Wire employees talking to them about the exact same thing. Everybody the same thing. But most of them were very kind enough to take pictures with us. And there have been some pretty cool people. And like Mike Rowe came in of Dirty Jobs. He was really cool. He actually did converse with us. Just like while we were setting up, because it takes time, you got to set up cameras, get microphones set up. And so Mike Rowe was there, and he was, instead of talking with Ben while they're getting set up, he was talking with all of us in the crew, really, and that's just who he is.
Talk about down to earth.
Yeah, exactly. That's just who he is. You watch Dirty Jobs, he's down there with the plumbers and the sewer guys, talking with them. So as much as he's there to talk with Ben on the Sunday Special, he's also he wants to talk to us, the crew doing the show. So that he was super nice. Senator Ted Cruz, I've met him a couple times, because Michael does a show with him, Verdict with Ted Cruz. So I've actually met him a couple times with Sunday Special and with Verdict. He's very nice. Jordan Peterson was the first one. He kind of keeps to himself, but he's a nice guy.
He's a real intellectual.
He's
like
very
total egghead.
Yeah. Everything is, you don't have small talk with Jordan Peterson. It's all high mind, big concept things with him.
There's memes online about you could say something like, gosh darn it, Jordan, do you want a burger or something? He'd be like, somehow relate it to the patriarchy, or not the patriarchy, but just some hierarchy of, I suck at the meme. I can't even think of it, but it's just a joke that, yes, he'll take a casual thing and go
turn it into
with
something intellectual. Yeah. Andrew Yang, like you said, was in. He's a very cool guy. And like the thing with him is like everybody would say like, I'd be friends with Andrew Yang, but I wouldn't vote for him. Like that's the joke with him. But he's really cool. Who else has been in? We've been doing it for like 3 years. It's hard to remember like the specific people.
Yeah.
And unfortunately now, Ben is down in Florida. So that's where he's at.
Of an interesting move. If your whole company moved to Tennessee, you're going to be in a different state, and you're one of the founders.
Well, as Ben would say, there are no Jews in Nashville. So that's why he went to Boca. And I'm not being anti-Semitic. That's just I'm quoting him.
Yes, I've heard him say that.
Yeah, he's like, there are no Jews in Nashville, and Boca is basically Jewish heaven. So that's why he's in Boca. It's got a very thriving Jewish community down there. And he's loving it. So that's why he's down there. And he's got his own studio. There's probably 5 or 6 people down there that help out with his show. But he's got cameras that we have a dedicated server that we pipe them into Nashville. Each camera and we still switch his show through Nashville from Florida.
You're running the switcher just like I'm running the switcher from a different state?
Yeah.
Dang, man.
But it's just each camera has its own dedicated line. We use this thing called the Live View, and it's cellular based, but also Ethernet. That it's its own dedicated server for each camera that gets piped into us, and then I just run those into the switcher, and it's like a 1 second delay.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, so he's down there in Florida, and that's where they do Sunday Special now, and anything that he does. So unfortunately, I haven't been able to, within the last year or so, been able to meet anybody that comes in there because I'm just not involved with that show anymore.
Sure. Since
they do it there, because like he just did Governor Ron DeSantis, so that was a big one in his now home state of Florida. Jordan Peterson was in for the coffee thing, and there's been a couple other big names that have come in that I just don't get to work on that show anymore.
Hey, win some, you lose some.
I know, yeah. If I just take it, it's kind of a gift, is that I don't have to worry about that anymore, and
right.
I can take on more projects that I'm more passionate about with the scripted content.
Absolutely. And that's the question I want to wrap up with, right? It's this.
Yeah.
What does the future look like for you? I mean, you are a professional video producer, a technical director. Mm-hmm. You're working with a massive company that is on the rise. You're very skilled. You're very talented. What do you want to do in the next, 10 years? I know you have a baby on the way. Congratulations.
Yep. Thank you.
By the way, your wife is here. You can't see her. You see her foot in the wide angle. But congratulations to you guys.
Thank you.
But yeah, what's the plan for the next few years?
Well, hopefully we stay in Nashville. We don't want to move again because that was a major life thing, moving from LA to Nashville.
Oh my gosh.
So hopefully in Nashville, hopefully still with Daily Wire, making the scripted content. That's what I went to school for. That's what I'm passionate about, is creating video, creating content, ideas, scripted stuff. So that's what I want to be doing. And that was one of the main reasons that I've stuck with them, is that through various different outlets, I've been able to get my hands on stuff. So like I mentioned earlier, Andrew Klavan's Another Kingdom. So go check that out if you haven't listened to that. It's 3 seasons of like a fantasy kind of sci-fi thing, mystery, adventure thing.
You have to have what a mind you have to think of a whole story like that, a fictional story. Fictional writers amaze me.
Yeah,
How can they do that?
Klavan is very good at what he does. He's won several awards, and he's great. So he wrote this as a book, but we produced it as a podcast. It was kind of like a fusion radio drama, scripted podcast type thing. And Knowles did the whole narration, all the voices, and we put in sound effects over top of it and did it as a podcast.
Wow.
So I did that, each season for 3 years. I was able to do that. So that was, one fiction thing that I had a ton of fun doing. And now with our, getting into entertainment, that's one thing I really want to do. I want to get deep into the entertainment side of stuff. And I'm hoping that, having been there for almost 6 years, and having brought a lot to the table and being an instrumental part in the production side of where we are now, that I can use that, and also just my personal abilities and storytelling, and all my experience with that I can kind of wrap that all into getting into the entertainment side of things and continuing my career with that of, what I actually want to do, of what I want to, of producing, writing, directing.
Right on. Well, man, the best of luck to you. Like I said, you're skilled. You're on the right path. The path you've had up to this point is incredible. And, I'm confident that you'll get right where you want to be in the near future. And again, congrats to you guys both on,
Thank you.
Getting pregnant and everything. Yep. And thank you so much for your time today. I don't know anyone else with this kind of this in to the Daily Wire studio. So it's been very fascinating to talk to you. So appreciate your time.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. All right. Boom. That's a wrap.
Thank you so much for watching that episode of The Paul Garcia Show. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, and share this episode on Facebook and with your friends. If you'd like to support the show, consider becoming a patron on patreon.com/Paul Garcia, where you can sign up to give $1 or more each month, and you will get early access to each and every episode, and your name will gracefully travel across the bottom of the screen in the beginning of every episode, so everyone will know that you're an amazing person. If you're not about the monthly support, consider making a one-time donation on Venmo to username The Paul Garcia Show. Another great and free way to support this show is to subscribe on YouTube. Once the channel hits 1,000 subscribers, some amazing things will happen, but I need your help for that. Also, I invite you to follow my page on Instagram, like my page on Facebook, and leave a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or even Google Reviews. This all helps a lot and is very much appreciated. Lastly, thank you for listening and watching, and God bless and have a great week.